Welcome to the Dom Sub Devotion podcast. Every episode of Dom Sub Devotion is an authentic reflection of our real life in a loving 24/7 DS marriage. If you crave the passion and intensity of a power exchange dynamic inside of a deeply loving and intimate relationship, you've found the right place. You can always find more from us in the show notes and at infinitedevotion.com. Thank you for listening.
We are getting ready to move.
Is that what we call this?
Something like that. For our listeners, by the time this episode comes out, we are going to be moved out of this home. The red chairs, if you watch us on YouTube, are going to be put away in storage. And we are going to have become full-time nomads living in our RV on the road.
We sure are.
And we've been learning a lot and experiencing a lot in preparing for this move. And I wanted to take some time today just to kind of share with our listeners some of what we're up to and what we're learning and what this whole process has kind of been like for us. And it's been more of a thing for you than it has for me for a number of reasons, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
Not the least of which is the roots that you have here.
Yep.
You know, we live in the same general vicinity where you were born and where you've lived your whole life. That's not the case for me. I've already kind of gone through the detaching from the place where I'm from. So I'm curious for you to share with our listeners what are you experiencing now in the preparing to leave what's been quote unquote home?
I want to say that, we've gone down south the last 2 winters. And up until that point, I have lived in this general area my whole life, basically. And so I learned a lot about myself leaving this area and being somewhere else for a lot of the winter, even though we'd come back home for a little bit in the middle for Christmas. And then we'd go back. And I couldn't not notice the difference in the feel inside of myself going away, feeling some expansion in who I am, becoming more of who I truly am meant to be. And then I would come back and it was almost as if I felt this restriction again. And all of this is just an energy feel. I didn't always have an understanding as to what I was experiencing. That being said, some of it was obvious, and very deeply confronting because it had to do with familial ties. And that includes my own children and then my own parents, mainly. And wow, have I had to work through a lot of just challenging emotions in relation to what is love truly in these relationships? What does it truly mean to love my mom, my dad, my daughters? And also view them as their own soul, having their own human experience here. And it has become deeply confronting with the love that I felt like I had for them. So before I go too far down that path, I want to kind of circle back around. Just some of that had already started opening in me. The expansion already started happening over the last 2 years, winters. So then we come back here this summer. and decide that we're actually pulling up roots from here and going to be doing this traveling thing officially. And making some of those decisions definitely is what has allowed me to see some of my own deepest wounding and my own deepest patterns of pain.
How so?
And, well, mm, it was maybe in July when fuck, this is hard to talk about right now. Uh, I realized that one of my deepest wounds was wanting to feel worthy, wanting to feel needed. And I truly believe that life happens for you. And so rewinding my life, going back to that wounding, I can see all the ways that this has played out in my life. And one of the ways that it played out for me was becoming a young mom. Like, my first child was born 7 weeks early, premature, like, need, right? Like, this baby needs you, and couldn't even completely eat. And so I had to teach her how to eat. And like, then I get pregnant again at a young age, and I delivered at 22. And like, that connection with that child was slightly different, but wow, did I try to fill a gaping hole inside of myself without even knowing it, with two daughters, two human beings, two souls. And I didn't know this until it hit me as I'm focusing on going after what I and we want in life. I have to confront the deepest pain inside of me that is a codependency on my kids. And that just feels sucky to say. It feels almost like shameful, humiliating. Like, that's what I did with these two beautiful people. Meanwhile, loving them, caring for them, giving everything I possibly could to them, poured myself into them so much that I was abandoning who I was. And so, confronting, to say the least, right? Challenging, and sitting with all of this together.
Yeah, and I watched you and continue to watch you really have to look at what does it mean to, for example, care for someone. What
Mhm.
does it actually mean to care about someone? Especially if you detach from the codependent patterns, if you detach from the ways that you are using them, in this case, to fill a void in yourself, if that's what you've known to be love and care, and you detach from those patterns, then what does it mean to love and care? You almost had to and are having to relearn what it means to love and to care for, absent those patterns as you work to let them go.
Yeah, and some of that was just so deeply painful, and I felt like I was mourning, just like grieving, because I was just like, how could I do that? But then I had to come back around and feel compassion for that little girl inside of myself that had that pain. I have that pain, and be able to let myself fully feel it. And start to really feel into, like you said, what does it truly mean to love my own girls? Because it felt like I kind of was manipulative, and it was almost like my love was a lie. And I'm like, wait a minute, but I still really loved them. And so it was just like jaded. Like, can't think of the exact word um, that I remember using to you when I started to have these realizations that, yeah, just deeply painful.
The way the love you had for them was always real. The way you
Mhm,
showed it was the best that you had at the time.
mhm,
And that's what came out through the repeating of old patterns, yes, but also the way that you showed up in their lives in order to get what you needed from them.
mhm.
So it didn't change and doesn't change the fact that the love you feel for them was and is and always will be real. But
Right,
how do you show it
right.
if you're not showing it from that place? That's what, like, you've been wrestling a lot with.
The word was tainted. It felt like the love I had for my girls was tainted with my own pain. And the other aspect of this, because this has been revealed to me in layers, was feeling responsible for their happiness in life and looking at myself as fucking up as a parent. Like I was the one who caused anything bad in their life, and I was the one who was responsible for their life not going the way they want to right now. And I could say on one hand, everyone's responsible for themselves, they're their own soul, but yet I was holding on to this belief inside of myself, holding myself responsible for someone else. And I was like, I can't fucking do that. But again, it was this like painful, confronting thing down to the deepest places of me.
Yeah, because those patterns are born out of your own pain.
Ex-
And
yeah.
the only reason we show up in codependency in any place in our lives is because we're trying to get the love that we didn't feel that we could or that we had available to us in the past.
Hmm.
And at the same time, there is definite cognitive dissonance that was a part of what played out here. Because on one hand, I've watched you step into ownership of your experience.
Hmm.
Life isn't happening to me. I'm not a victim. Everything that has happened and that does happen is happening for me.
Hmm.
It's happening to teach me something. It's giving me what I need to overcome so that I can be more fully myself. And so I watched you battle the dissonance of believing and really like honestly beginning to believe the truth in that. And then also thinking that you did something to your kids. So life is happening for you, but to them.
Yeah.
And you can't have it both ways or you'll drive yourself insane.
No. And I would always take quite responsibility for my life, almost to a fault sometimes, where I would look at other things as my fault, as my responsibility, right?
Yeah.
That's how this would play out for me.
Yeah, and it's an important lesson that there is no blame or fault in responsibility. Taking responsibility is not the same as blaming yourself or putting yourself at fault.
No,
But it can feel that way when we have pain inside of us that makes us afraid of doing anything wrong.
sure can.
So, yeah, the idea of moving out of here stirred up some pretty big stuff for you.
Yeah, and that's not even all of it.
That's not even close to all of it. But at the same time, there's excitement around this too. And I know for myself, a part of why I've been so able to just be here for you to lean on me as you've gone through everything you have this summer, in part is because I don't have the same ties to the area that we're leaving. So for me, I've just been excited. And sometimes it hasn't really felt fair how excited I've been. And I've honestly kept some of it down at times when you've been feeling really heavy about stuff.
Yeah, I've wanted to say, good for you.
Yeah. So happy for you while I sit over here and cry.
I'm just grieving over here.
But it is also going to be a lot of fun.
I wanted to kind of at least give some closure to this whole concept of grief, because we can look at that word and think, oh my gosh, it's like so sad and mournful and bad, and like whatever connotations we have with that word. But for me, when I've been so focused, doesn't even feel like the right word, because that kind of feels like trying in a way. But when I have had this desire to continuously become more of who I am and live in that excitement around that, it has allowed me to hold excitement and belief in possibility, meanwhile going through some of these what feel like very deeply challenging emotions, like grief, right? So when I talk about the grief, it's about for me, it's about allowing myself to feel the pain, like the whole analogy of the doors closing, the detachment that happens. Back to this relationship with my girls, I have to be able to detach myself from any sort of codependency in those relationships to allow true love and acceptance to actually flourish in them. And that's what this has brought up for me, is being able to see those deep patterns, meet them with love, acceptance, compassion, and be able to actually say, I believe in you. I believe in you as a soul, and I'm not going to cling to you anymore and try to control your life experience because I thought that that's what I needed to do in life. And so for me, it's been a really oh, deeply heart opening in trust in God, the universe, in detaching myself from any little bits of control. And let me tell you, that's been a process. It's been allowing myself to be present with what I'm experiencing each and every time. There's like message exchanges, in person communication, telephone calls, and looking at it as an opportunity to let go even more. Because I want to be free and they deserve to be free too.
I remember this phrase from, it might have been from Melody Beatty, who wrote Codependent No More, but it's this concept of detaching with love.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important thing here. Anytime that we're recognizing a place that I think we are somehow codependently attached, is that detachment doesn't mean not loving that person.
Mm-hmm.
It means letting go of the control of them so that the love that is real can actually be seen.
Yep. And I could look at my life with them and be like, oh my gosh, like now I can see how life was trying to show me, like, you don't control, you don't control, you don't control. And to have certain point, I would have said, yeah, I'm not trying to. But I didn't realize this like gaping hole inside of me that was getting filled by them. And so all of this has been such a gift and opportunity for me in being able to experience, like I said, like, and come into actual love with a separation of an individuality. And it just feels so incredible. It feels new and big and exciting to me. And it's it's been months of seeing myself and seeing patterns and letting myself feel the pain, wondering if it was ever actually going to go away, but trusting that it would. And with each month, I feel like I've seen a little bit more, cried a heck of a lot more. And then also now that the excitement of the possibility of our like new travels together has like gotten so much bigger. Whereas before it was like, I'm having all this grief. If I'm talking percentages, it was like 80% grief or, you know, that emotion. And then 20% like, sometimes I could just touch it just a little bit. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to be where my feet are because I knew that it wouldn't last forever either. As long as I meet it with acceptance and compassion and just feel it for what it is whenever it was there. And let me say, you have been so deeply supportive in that. Whenever I was feeling anything, and will continue over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure, but whatever I was feeling, that I could bring it to you and cry or just express. And I didn't feel judgment. I didn't feel rejection. I just literally felt your heart open for me in love. And that has been so incredible to experience. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm glad that that has been your experience, because that's what I want to give to you in everything. And that is your submission to me in a case like this. I think one of the things that really challenges people in trying to sort out how do we do dominance and submission in regular life stuff. I couldn't just tell you to it wouldn't have been appropriate for me as your husband to tell you to get over it, to stop crying. I'm excited about this. Why are you stealing my joy by being so sad? Whatever, I might have said if this was an older version of me, for example. I don't think I probably would have ever been that harsh with you.
You probably wouldn't have said it, but you might have thought it.
I would have thought it for sure. I would have been frustrated, but then stuffed it.
Yeah.
Is what I would have done. Which is honestly not there anymore. That frustration that I know I would have felt in the past. But your submission to me is to feel the reality of the emotion that you're feeling in the moment that you're feeling it. And people have heard me say this before. This is integrity for the feminine, to feel the feelings that you're feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I'm just wanting you to cry all the time and grieve all the time and be sad all the time, but if that's what you're feeling, you're not going to talk yourself out of it.
Nope.
You're either going to feel it or stuff it. And if you stuff it, then we have a different problem to deal with somewhere down the road when the resentment for having felt like you had to stuff that feeling to avoid upsetting me comes up.
Yeah. And I literally understand and experience now what it's like to ride the wave of emotion, because we can be having breakfast and something comes up and I'm crying, and then we finish breakfast and all of a sudden I'm laughing, and like, I don't cling to any of it. I don't grasp it. I don't reject it. I just feel it. And it is a life-giving experience.
And if I don't resist it or try to cling to the good ones and get past the bad ones and just, I'm putting good and bad in quotes there because
Yeah.
they really just, they aren't good or bad. They just are the reality of the moment. When I'm just in acceptance of you being how you are, none of it sticks around forever. This is impermanence.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for me to lead you towards where I want us to be, which is deeper union, deeper connection, more passion, hotter sex, more fun, to have these values really become more alive in our life, we can't be also stuffing things that are going to come up later and then trying to avoid all of the stuffed emotions. That's not going to work.
No.
So there have also been some emotions of excitement.
Oh, absolutely.
And, especially for me, I've been having fun getting ready to go. Part of the fun has been the downsizing and the minimalizing our life to a certain extent to be able to live in 300 square feet for the next how many years?
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you've felt the same freedom that I have in bagging up bags of things to go either in the trash or to be donated or given away.
Yeah, I wanted to dive into that a little bit, but I want to give you some kudos here because I don't remember. I think it was July when we kind of decided that we were going to pull out in October. And you were like, all right, I'm going to get the storage facility a month before. And I'm like, wow, okay. I don't think it really takes that long to move out, but sure. Okay, whatever, cool. And so we started talking about like slowly going through things and being able to move things to storage, get rid of stuff, but then also create the space for fun.
Yep.
Because,
To not be overwhelmed and buried in moving and packing.
right. So we would, I love how you've done this over the last few weeks you have control over our schedule. And so you kind of tell me how you're putting everything together. And so, for example, it was like, all right, this week on Tuesday, we're getting a moving truck and we're moving out as many loads as we can get to our storage. You figured out the storage. Thank you. He figures out everything, by the way. And like all of these decisions are yours. And it's allowed me to have an experience right now being where my feet are and fully feeling a lot. Yes, freedom. And I'll come back to that. But I just love how it was like, all right, Tuesday we're doing this. And then Wednesday it was like, all right, we have this fun scheduled. And then it'll be like, all right, these days we're working on packing up a few other things. And it's gone so smoothly and it has felt mostly easy. There's been moments of overwhelm for me in small amounts just because it's like, wow, okay, focus on this. Right now, not all of that needs to be done, but focus on this. And being able to have the slowness and the space to go through everything, because this is such a different experience than packing up everything in boxes just to move it to a different house and then unpack and live with it. For example, I was laughing at myself because this week I just went through my jewelry box. Now, I have a couple foot high jewelry box. It's like a standalone thing. So lots of drawers. I had earrings in there that were from when my kids were young. They're little kitten earrings and the reds, the blues, the
You
greens, stones, the Minnie Mouse, and like,
you didn't put on the Minnie Mouse earrings for me?
no, no. And I had so much stuff in there. And then I have like this whole drawer of the cards that we've given each other, and they've just sat in there for a long time. And then, and I'm going through all of these other necklaces that I don't wear anymore,
Why don't you
but
wear
I
other necklaces?
love
Why don't you wear other necklaces anymore?
because I wear my beautiful collars. And so I had kept a few pieces just because I really like them. And I'm like, you know what? I think it was like 2 and then plus my diamond solitaire. Like, that's what I kept. And I was like, do I donate these? Do I keep them? Like, what do I do with these things? I set aside a few for my mom. And also then going through all of my clothes and all of my shoes and trying to decide, like, what do I keep? I do not have that many. I swear to you, a lot of women have more than I do.
I You can have as many shoes as you want because your shoes are sexy as fuck, and I love when you wear them.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
I think there are a lot, but I don't mind that there are a lot because you look hot in them.
Definitely more than yours. But, the trying to like be realistic with what space we have in the camper. Be realistic with I don't know how long it will be if I put these in storage till I actually pull them back out, and am I going to love them? And so I'm feeling into all sorts of different things on what do I keep, what do I get rid of? And in all of this, I am noticing little things of like, does this feel a scarcity to me or does this feel like abundance? And that's where the freedom kind of comes in both ways because I've worked through and I've seen so many patterns of myself on clinging to things and thinking like, I need to hang on to this because what if? Yeah, what if, right? Like, okay, get rid of it. I don't have to act like I will never be able to get another item like that again. And then some of it feels really freeing in the not having so much stuff and getting rid of the things that I don't wear and use anymore. And so I've really appreciated, for one, the space that I've had to do this and the time and the tension that I've gotten to give to this in a slow pace. And some of this has been done when I've been home alone. And it's like, just even that space, me being able to be alone with my things is just this, I don't know, it's such a different experience for me being where I'm at now.
So I want to pause this, like at this point in the conversation for our listeners, and I want to zoom out for a moment here and take a moment to teach you what I've done and what you're experiencing and hearing Dawn share right now. Her experience of moving has been what she just shared with you: freedom, spaciousness,
Hmm.
opportunity, fun. Now, I set this up so that it could work well for us. This is why we have to be, I think, as dominants, we have to be attentive to the realities and the totality of life and not just, for example, assume that you could handle moving at the pace that I could handle. Because could I take 3 days off, go through this house, get everything cleaned up, jammed in boxes, put away what we want in storage, put in storage, throw away everything that I don't care about, that doesn't need to be saved for later, and like be done with it? Yes, I could. I cannot assume that you can go through life at the same pace with handle the same level of stress that I can. I have to do this in a way that suits us. I say this all the time. We are not separate, you and I. If I'm putting you through a level of stress that you actually can't handle while staying in your body, while staying true to who you are, while being available to me, it's not just going to be those like 3 days of moving. It's going to be all of the stress leading up to it and then all of the fallout on the back end of having been put through that. It's going to be the anxiety, the worry, the fear, the like, what are we going to do? Is this all going to work? And then it's going to be the stress of the move. And then it's going to be the letdown or the crash after it. So looking at our plans, I planned in reverse. Our departure date, we knew that. I made a plan for what we're going to do the last week that we're here so that we can move at the pace we need to through the final steps and stages of cleaning out and getting ready to leave for good. And then from there, looked at your cycle. Okay, done. Like, I know when, because I track your cycle, I know when you're going to have your period. I know when you're going to be in your luteal phase, which is like now. And I know that if I try to push too much of our packing and moving into a time when you are low energy and higher emotion, that it's going to be really, really hard on you. Because I keep track of this and I know how your body works with your cycle, I was able to go back in July and say, okay, well, in September, here's about what we're going to be dealing with what time of her cycle she's going to be in as we're planning out these steps of moving. And because the luteal phase and your period are falling right before kind of the end of the moving process, I couldn't put more of the work of this into those last 2 weeks. So I backed it up a couple more weeks, and that's why we got our storage unit 5 weeks before we leave. So that we had really a few weeks before you got into your lower energy part of your cycle. And now it's felt like fun and spaciousness and it's been easy.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the level of attentiveness that I have to every bit of your life and the way that I don't assume you are the same as me. But I see you and I know you and I understand you and I feel you and I can know exactly how to create this, even something so transformative in our life as moving out of our home, becoming quote unquote homeless, to be permanent, semi-permanent nomads, to be living on the road, going away for good, probably from the place you've lived your whole life, watching you go through all of this with your kids and still let the process of moving feel fun and easy. And that is why we have to be so in tune with our submissives as dominants. Because could I just force her? Could I just force you into doing it in 3 days? Sure. And you would have done it if I would have told you to.
I sure would have.
That would not have been the best case scenario or the best way to handle it. Our lives afforded us the ability to move at this pace, and it has worked out much better.
Absolutely. I am deeply grateful, even though it, like I said it before at the beginning, it was like, really? We need that long? And then I started to understand a little bit more of why.
Okay, well, let's go there because, I was talking to a guy this morning in a coaching session who has a really hard time with when his woman questions him. And there was a bit of you questioning me, like, why are we doing it so far in advance? That seems like wasting money on renting a storage unit so much earlier. I don't remember if you said that, but I could tell you were feeling it.
No, the energy behind me even asking is not the same as when it was coming from an unconscious control pattern. I don't even remember if I actually asked you that, but I remember thinking, oh, wow, a whole month in advance. Okay. And a lot of times when you make your decisions, I know you have reasons that I don't need to know. And sometimes I don't even want to know.
And I feel that trust from you now, which is an absolute gift.
Yeah. And I just want to say this, that my whole experience in that feels so good and freeing to not want to try to control the way you make your decisions and nitpick them and just live in the following. It's really freeing.
So you did question me on it. And in the past, I would have felt the disapproval in your questioning, because for the women out there, you might not even recognize or understand that you are disapproving in the way that you question, but he feels it. And he might not realize that he feels it, but he knows it. And so if he's reacting poorly to you questioning him, look inside yourself, because the way that he feels you and receives you probably shows you that you have some disapproval, or you're trying to control or shape what he's doing. And you're not just asking. You're trying to get him to justify himself to you.
Absolutely. I've been there.
So for the guys, if you do sense your woman asking those questions and you know, or you feel that there's control behind or disapproval behind her questions, what you've got to do as a guy is know what you're planning on doing and do it anyway. But you have to not care to a certain extent that she's trying to control or question you, and do what you know is right. And not get into the patterns of defensiveness or justification or rationalization, but to really learn to trust in yourself.
Yeah, because from the woman, when that questioning and grasping for control is going on unconsciously, it's also, there's something unconscious happening, subconscious, whatever, in the man as well. Like those patterns get to be seen and get to be evolved beyond. But it's just part of the process of undoing them. They have to happen in order for you to see them, in order for you to let go of them.
So how did we get here? How did we get to this place of leaving everything behind and living a nomadic life?
I don't exactly remember, but I do remember you were the one to bring out this idea a long time ago. And I was like, what? Whoa. And at the time, I remember asking you more recently if I was receptive to it. And you were like, yeah, you were. And
You were
um,
curious about it.
yeah, I didn't go into rejection or anything, but also that was a long time ago. And so it felt like it was a long way into the future. And would it really happen? Who knows? And even when we sold our house and bought our camper a few years ago, we didn't exactly even know if we were going to ever full time in it at that point. But I love how we gave it a go, and you set us up to do this, to be snowbirds over the winter, the last 2 years. And it was such a good experience to be in and to learn and to grow and to like test it out in certain ways and learn what we need to know as much as we could to set ourselves up to make the decision, do we actually want a full-time in this thing?
And I always knew that I did. You needed to have the experience of enjoying it so that you could also really know that you wanted to do this full time, because full time is a totally different animal than even going half the year, knowing that you have a home base to come back to for the other half of the year. It's a completely different animal. When we leave here in a little over 2 weeks, we're in the wind.
Yeah. It's why what we already talked about in the beginning has been a- allowed to surface inside of me and be seen.
So this is another example of, I couldn't talk you into wanting to live full-time in an RV. What I had to do was give you an experience of it. And I really did my best over the last 2 winters to give you a good experience of it,
Mm-hmm.
because I did want you to enjoy it. I did want to take us in this direction. And so, and you knew that. So I did my best to show you that this could be a workable and fun way for us to live our life. And then, having had the experience, then you were ready to go, oh yeah, now I actually do know that I want this, rather than just think that I want it. I cannot convince you of things and have you want them for real. I can only give you experiences and let you see for yourself. And that is the crux of the difference between forceful dominance and dominance as leadership. Rather than just say, get in the RV, bitch, we're going. Like, let's show you that this can be a fun way for you to live. And then you're on board with it, and now you're having an authentic experience of being excited about this with me.
Yeah. And we just work so well together in the Dom sub leader follower aspect of all of this stuff. And, including how we pick where we're going to stay. We do some of the looking together and feeling it out. And then you make the final decision. And I go with it. Like, there's no questioning. Are you sure? Like, I don't know about that one. I don't do that. And that feels good to me, to not even want to do that.
Yeah, so every little bit of this process, and it's a process. If you think about, for someone who's never considered this, like this way of living, right now we know where we have a pretty good idea, at least, or a plan of where we are going to be staying from when we leave here on October 20th until sometime in roughly February. Beyond February, we do not know where home is. And that is a really high level of uncertainty. You don't think about the certainty that you have of knowing where you're going to be going to sleep at night until you look at your life and you realize that you don't know where that's going to be 4 months from now. And it takes a really high level of trust in yourself and confidence and a belief in not only my ability to continue to find a good experience for us, but a belief in your ability to allow me to lead in that. And I just know that you're going to be right there by my side, no matter where it is that I take us.
Yeah, I know it's going to be amazing. No matter what, because if a hiccup comes up, it did on our trip down south last year, right? Broke a leaf spring. You had to fix that in a golf course parking lot. And so we got delayed the next day, but still even made it to the place we were going to go to because of the way you set up our travel and allowed for spaciousness even in the traveling and the moving.
Yes, and we've had campsites that we thought were going to not work out the day before we were supposed to go there and have to find a different place to go. We haven't yet had to flee weather, but we've had bad weather where we got stuck in an ice storm and had to sit inside with no power for days on end. There's going to be a constant string of uncertainty that is like the most certain thing there is in this way of living. Like the most certain thing is that it's going to be uncertain.
Yeah, I think we could definitely dive into that, but maybe we can dive into that more on another podcast about fear and uncertainty and all of what that part has been for me, because there's a lot there too.
I definitely intend for us to continue to use this travel as an example of how we do dominance and submission. Not because anyone else has to do that or do it our way, but I know there is just going to be so many lessons we learn and ways that we get to lean on our dom-sub dynamic to help make our life of travel work smoothly.
Yeah, people like the examples, the real life examples, so they can take from it and learn. Like, I think that's a pretty natural thing, you know? So, for example, I kind of went into this just recently, but you make all the decision on when we're leaving, when we're getting somewhere, how many nights we're going to travel between here and there. And what I get to be a part of is the, like, the fun side, the creative side. Like I said before, looking at the RV places together, the campgrounds, and feeling into what does this place look like? What does this feel like on their website? And looking at the maps and seeing what's in the area. And I can't remember if I was the one who came up with checking out some of Alabama, but anyway, that was on our potential last year, and we changed plans as well. But anyway, I get to just look and explore and have fun. And then I get to be like, here.
Yeah, and then we sit down together and look through them.
Mm-hmm.
And I do what I'm good at, which is making decisions on where to stay based on all the facts and the realities of the different places, make the phone calls, sort out where do we want to stay, okay? And then get the dates figured out. So I have an itinerary laid out for us that removes as much uncertainty as possible or allows us to plan and to change plans when we need to, because we know exactly what we'll be doing on what day, where we're traveling from, where we're traveling to, where we've made deposits on places to stay, how far in advance we need to cancel if we need to get our money back, phone numbers and addresses for every place. And so we have a nice structure now to operate within so that both I and you can show up and execute on a plan. And there's not a fly by the seat of our pants, even though we are flying by the seat of our pants.
Yeah.
We're doing it with a little bit of order.
Yeah. You definitely take control of all of the logistics, because that is not where I want my energy going. It's draining to me.
The reason I wanted to do this in the first place so many years ago was when I very first started to figure out that I needed to align my life with some kind of values. And at that point, I felt very trapped in my life. I felt trapped in my job. I felt trapped in our marriage in a way that it just was not fulfilling me. And I felt overcommitted and obligated, and also very, very much committed to follow through on the promises that I had made to you, to your girls, to help raise them in the ways that they needed me to. And I also knew that they were going to grow up. And my plan, and part of how I came up with this plan, was at some point they're going to be grown up. And I want to at that point take you away and go on an adventure. And I started looking first at tiny homes and then at motor homes and then eventually fifth wheels, what we ended up purchasing and now are going to be living in. But that was all a part of the value of freedom and my desire to align my life with that value and to bring you along with me. I also knew that in order to get to that place, there was a lot of other things that had to be sorted out in life. And so I had some time to do it. Getting us out of debt. And for us to be setting off on this journey 100% debt free that gives me chills right now, just thinking about how freeing that is to not owe anything to anyone. Because I think I've maybe said this in this podcast before, but 10 years ago when I started out on my own personal growth journey, I was over $1 million in debt. Now, some of that was properties, so backed by assets. I wasn't $1 million negative net worth, but still, there was so much hanging over my head every single month. And to have so much of that gone.
What did that feel like to you at the time?
The accumulating of it felt like I was pursuing something. I was chasing success. So I had business loans from starting my business. I got burned for $60,000 before I even opened the doors of my business by a landlord that ripped me off. And then my business went backwards in like paying out more than it brought in for a couple of years before it started to be in the black. But it was all in pursuit of what I thought I wanted, which was all just me trying to fill my own void. We talked at the beginning of this episode about you and how for you, like filling the void, one of the ways you did that was having kids and then being needed. Well, I was trying to fill the void of my lack of worthiness by being successful and wealthy and having a great reputation and all of these other things that I tried to do in the business world. I spent a lot of money to do it. I bought rental property, and at a certain point when I realized that this wasn't it, then it felt like a brick. It felt like a gigantic brick hanging over my head every single day. There was a point where I had to make $30,000 a month before I got to take any money home. And that felt like the biggest burden in the world. And a few years before, that would have felt like something I was proud of because I could do it. And all of a sudden it was like, this is meaningless. And look what I got myself into.
And now look what you got yourself out of.
And what I got myself into all over again. But now it's in alignment with values. It's in alignment with who I am. And I've been able to bring you along with me. And that's what feels really special. So this isn't just about jumping in an RV, jumping in our truck and hitching up to our fifth wheel in a couple weeks and heading off on an adventure. This is the fulfillment of a decade of persistent effort to my own and to bring myself into a life that actually is meaningful to me. And that's why I'm so damn excited. It's not just about what we're doing. It's everything that went into completely turning my life on its head and digging out of that debt and changing my life and helping you come into yourself so you could enjoy this with me. And so we could do this together in a fulfilling, fun, passionate, exciting relationship. There's so much that this means to me.
It's been a fun journey and will continue to be, I know. I am deeply grateful to be where I'm at in knowing that I'm ready for this. And I remember feeling like that changing inside of me earlier this year, of believing that I was ready to do this, because for a while it was like, oh no, I'm ready to go back home, let's get back into our bigger space. And then coming back here and knowing how life works, and that I was going to be going through some emotional chaos in order to be prepared to fully, what feels like, close the door on this area for me and move into what feels like a new world of possibility, of infinite possibility, and live in a way that I have barely dreamed of. And it feels very freeing, exciting. There's going to be lots of fun and pleasure in all sorts of ways.
I have every intention of making this the stuff that we will be telling stories about for the rest of our lives. And for everyone who watches our podcast on YouTube, everyone who listens, we appreciate you're a part of this journey. You're a part of what it makes it possible for us to do this.
Yeah.
So thank you to all of you. We couldn't do this if it wasn't for you. And also, we're going to bring you with us on the road.
We sure are.
So you'll see the background change. Those of you who have been paying attention and watching long enough, you've seen last winter when we had our podcasts in our RV, and they'll be back there again. And by the time you're watching this, we're already in there, probably sitting on a beach somewhere. So thank you all very much. We're excited to have you come on this journey with us, and we'll be sharing a lot more about it as we go.
Yes, we appreciate you so much. We love you all.
We really do. Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.